I'm Dave Shadovitz, editor of Human Resource Executive Magazine, and I'm here at the Recruiting Trends and Talent Tech Conference in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I'm here with Linda Brenner, who is the co-founder and managing partner of Talent Growth Advisors.
That's right.
Linda, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Yep. Now, I know you're here at the conference and you're going to be talking about the need for talent acquisition professionals to focus on the critical roles of the organization.
Right.
Why do you think that should be a priority for organizations?
Well, I think for HR or TA, there are limited resources. We can't do everything for everybody. The old model of spreading our resources as thinly and as evenly as possible by level, executives get a ton, mid-level gets so much, and then hourlies or entry-level workers get a little bit. It's a flawed concept. It didn't work in the industrial age when it first became the typical practice, and it absolutely no longer works. So we have to think about how do we prioritize and leverage our resources by criticality, which let's stop there.
Yeah, and would you say that many companies are doing this today, or not too many are actually doing this?
I think not too many yet have thought about changing it up in this dramatic fashion, but they will, because we're in the knowledge economy, and intellectual capital is the most valuable resource on the planet. And intellectual capital is brands, IP, patents, data, proprietary relationships with customers, and the source of that is only people, but not all people, not all jobs. So that fact in and of itself is indisputable. It just depends on, okay, what are we going to do with that?
Okay, so looking at the beginning of this process, how should companies go about identifying those critical jobs?
It's a really good question. This is what we do as a practice, but any company can begin with, what are we telling investors? How are we going to grow? What is our most valuable intellectual capital asset? If we're Merck, it's going to be patents. It's going to be our R&D. It's going to be our scientists. If we're Apple, it's going to be product. It's going to be innovation. It's going to be technology. And smaller companies. So some of those roles are more critical and able to impact the enterprise value of a firm. If I'm a merchant at Home Depot, I actually, based on how well I do my job, buying lumber or millwork or outside garden, I have the ability to impact the enterprise value of Home Depot. If I'm an administrative assistant or a finance analyst, I will be supporting that effort, but I'm not driving it personally.
Okay. So, on the other side of this equation, does this also mean that in terms of non-critical roles, we don't need to worry about those, or what do you tell the manager?
It's a great question. The idea is to bring people along, and how are we creating value as a company? And it's not to say other jobs are not important. They're all important, or they wouldn't exist. We would not be spending the money to invest in a headcount if it wasn't important. So it's important. So our thesis is we have to be more efficient in the way we find, select, and retain people in important roles, where we have to overinvest in doing it for critical roles. Critical roles are often very scarce in the marketplace. If it's an experienced nurse, if it's a Ruby on Rails developer, there's not many out there. So the way we go out and get them and keep them has got to be dramatically different than how we would go find a marketing coordinator or a training manager.
How do you go about balancing an approach that prioritizes various roles with the notion that hiring managers are customers, or HR's customers as well?
Well, I think that's the problem. Hiring managers are not our customers. If we're in recruiting and the idea is that they are our customers, then we are beholden to their whims and beliefs and desires, which might be exactly opposite of what we really need to do to attract the talent we need. So the concept of who's a customer and who's not, I think, is played out, and it doesn't work. This cannot be driven from HR and recruiting up. It's got to come strategically. This is what we're telling our investors. Here's how we're going to create value and grow the business. And these roles are most critical to that happening. And we've got to overinvest in how we win talent for them. And hiring managers need to hear that from up above. And we have to understand what's the best way to win scarce talent in a super hot market.
Okay. And as a final question, everything is about measuring today in HR.
Yep.
How does a company go about measuring the long-term success of their efforts in this area?
Great question. If we go back to our Merck example, how are we doing with R&D employees? There's a difference between accountability and measurement in our view, and they get very muddled in a lot of companies. But we want to look at where did we get hires from for these critical roles, and let's talk about R&D, and then track that over at least 2 years. Who stays, who performs, who's promoted, and who's paid over 2 years and beyond. So then we can determine where are the sources from which we get the best hires and how we can further continuously improve in those areas. That's not to suggest we're going to hold recruiters accountable for 2-3 year attrition, but we have to measure it. We got to set aside like who's going to get yelled at that's just got to take second place to are we even tracking this in the first place? And we believe start small, start with IT, start with R&D, start with that critical group and measure quality of hire over time.
Okay, Linda, thank you so much.
Thank you.